I tried to make this a pretty video, recorded on my phone, all of that, but it didn't work out. And I think this is part of what uh, this whole planetary alignment with Pluto is all about. If you read anything about Pluto, it tells you that it is not only transformative, but it can be devastating. So let's rewind to my life 2019. 2019 was an amazingly beautiful struggle. My salon business was thriving. My sound healing business was thriving. All of my friends were doing really well. We were all transitioning into like these really great parts of our lives. I was in a really great relationship with a person that I assumed that I would soon be married to, but also just spend my life with, that I'd met about 4 to 5 years before. We met online. And when my son met him, he was like, Mama met her match, right? He's going around telling the family that I had met my match. And so we traveled the world together. Um, in search of actually becoming expats, right? Like I had finally found someone who shared the dream of living outside the United States together. But he had children. Um, and I was like, yeah, like I was already traveling. So like if you want to come on board and like let's start looking at places and finding out where we fit. We were an interracial couple. So just anytime we arrived places, there was always like this curiosity and wonder, which we both really enjoyed. And so as life moved on, he had a really great property in Atlanta, like the one of the prime neighborhoods of Atlanta near the Martin Luther King Center. And I ended up buying a house a little bit in the suburbs with this beautiful, like wrap around back porch. And so we had our country home and we had our city home. And my son was graduating high school in Nashville. This was in 2019. And he was starting his first term at Georgia State. So and you see all this joy in my face because I was so excited. I bought my first home. It was the dream house, right? So that means that every single time I would meditate, the spirits would give me a new feature of a house, or they would show me where I'll be sitting or what it was that I was looking for. And so didn't know at the time that I was being divinely guided towards this particular home. And I also was very adamant about buying a home from an older family. They kept telling me that I needed to live in a neighborhood that was like my grandparents, who are still living. They're 81 and 90, and they were one of the first people in Missouri to buy a home in their neighborhood. And it continues to be a Black neighborhood in my small town in Missouri. And so I'm looking for this place that would come from some elders, and all of those things came true. I ended up buying from an architect and a professor at one of the HBCUs um, in Atlanta. They had unfortunately lost their daughter, and so they lived in the same house their whole lives. And I was going to be the first person to take over this house. And I was floored that essentially they didn't have a daughter, but they were able to pass this wealth on to me. And I could stand in the place of their daughter. At the table, my boyfriend at the time was my real estate agent, and he even told everybody at the table, she's been telling me everything about this house and about you all before this day even happened. And it was just so wonderful to be witnessed in that way, because there's so many times as an empath and as a spiritual conduit, I feel a little off or a little strange about the messages that I got. And so that was confirmation. And as soon as I began to move my stuff in and spend the night there, dreams and things just kept flooding into my awareness. And it was just amazing. I would go to sleep and wake up with just a new revelation. And unfortunately, one of those revelations was of my ex-boyfriend, who is now my ex-boyfriend. I never dreamed about him in the past. We'd spent years together without any dreams or prophecies or anything really like that. Outside of one time that he had trouble sleeping often, um, and I saged his room and asked all the spirits that would be bothering him to leave him alone. And he actually had a very adverse reaction, and so I didn't do it again, which should have been a clue. Like, what spirits are on you that now are being asked to leave, and instead they kind of essentially attacked him in his dreams. Um, and so in this dream, I saw him, and there was no body. He was disembodied, and he turned himself to me and he said, "It's over." And I woke up. That was it. In real life, he was laying right there in the bed, and I couldn't understand what that was about. And I kept my mouth closed about it. And I let the months pass until one day I'm preparing to go to a retreat in Costa Rica, or hold a retreat, I should say, in Costa Rica. I prepare my son some food. I go out to walk the dog. And unbeknownst to me, my son and my ex get into a very brief text conversation where my son calls out my ex on his lack of loyalty and his sexual prowess with other women. I had no idea any of this was going on with my ex, and I had no idea that my son had wind of it. When I reach back from walking my dog, my son is in the driveway full of blood and telling me that he needs to go to the hospital. I didn't know what had happened. I was severely confused, but the way that my system works, everything freezes. And I'm very, very clear on what it is that I need to do. So I was like, we've got to go to the emergency room. We've got to, I've got to get my things, let's take him. And when I walk into the house, again, my son is in the driveway. When I walk into this house, my boyfriend is pacing back and forth in the house and screaming, "It's over." My dream had come to pass. Long story short, my car would not start when I was attempting to take them both to the hospital. And so my boyfriend left me and my son on, I guess I should reverse. They'd gotten in a fight, and my son had, I love this neighbor back there. Um, they'd both gone through the sliding glass windows of my newly purchased home. My house was 10-foot glass windows across the entire back side of the house. And they had gone through one where the windows have not been, or I should say the doors had not been replaced since the house was built in the 70s. So instead of it shattering in small little granular pieces, which is what is code now, it broke in huge shards that you see in the movies. When I had the doors, replaced, the repairmen took pictures because they said they had never seen anything like that before. They did not know how either of them survived. Um, it was devastating. And my ex left both me and my son on the curb while my son was bleeding from vital pressure points. He knew that my car did not start. And he continued to yell that the relationship was over. Well, duh. Right? This was just the beginning of what tumbled into years of me healing, years of me helping my son to heal. The guilt and the shame of bringing someone into our lives that was never loyal to us. And most of all, me seeing that the relationship was over through a dream and not acting on it, not questioning him, not doing anything, just suppressing my gifts like I always had until that day. And from that day forward, I realized I can hear spirit so clearly. And for my entire life, I have been denying it. And it pulled me so far from a place of self love that I almost lost my son, my only son, and a man who had two children almost lost their father. The amount of protection around both of their lives and the protection of my spirits and my ancestors to not allow me to be in a relationship with someone who is not loyal to me or my family or good for me or my son was just profound. The dreams that my friends began to have based on this separation to encourage me to continue to move on and to move forward. The ways that, as an empath and as a seer, because of grind culture, I was willing to deny everything that was the truth innately in me because I had to work. I had to go and make money. I had to be normal and not heed the call of spirit. And it took therapy, legitimate therapy, legitimate sound healing, yoga nidra practices of rest where I'm connected to the divine in order for me to truly let go of decades of denial about who I am and to also help my son to heal mentally, physically, and spiritually on a deep level. And he too had to seek therapy. He too had to heed the call of his spiritual knowings. I'm grateful because we're both in beautiful places in our lives right now. But I would never, ever, 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 ever wish this on anyone else. I feel like what I've been through is important so that other women and empaths and spiritual seers don't have to go through this. They don't have to deny who and what they are. And those who have a real passion and a real purpose for their lives don't have to sideline those things because there's a grind or there's an expectation or there's childhood trauma that tells you that your genius does not somehow fit in this world, because I'm telling you it does. You're born here for a specific beautiful reason that is just your own. That's your own DNA, no one else's. Whew. Okay, I got that out. That's 4 years ago, and it's still painful. But I hope that the story of just dream premonitions, gut feelings, knowing when someone is lying, knowing when you are onto something, I pray that you can trust into that or to walk with that a little bit deeper because of my story. Don't deny yourself. Please don't deny yourself.